The war was over. 3 days later, Ambassador Daeho Kim stood once again in the great chamber of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime. But this time, he was not asking for permission to join. This time, the aliens were asking him for help. Hi. Commander Krixtal's crystal body was still cracked from battle. He bowed low before the human ambassador. Great Daeho Kim, the Vorthak Empire owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. We beg you to lead the Galactic Council in these dark times. Veltar's energy form flickered weakly as she spoke. The Nethys Confederacy offers all our technology and knowledge to humanity. We were wrong to call you weak. Please, show us mercy. Queen Zakath's hive mind spoke with voices full of shame. The Gorvani species asks for forgiveness. We mocked your emotions, but your emotions saved us all. Grant us the honor of serving under human leadership. Daeho looked around the great chamber where, 6 months ago, these same beings had laughed at humanity's weakness. Now they filled the room with pleas for help and protection. Great leaders, he said calmly, humanity does not seek to rule over you. We seek to work with you. But you are clearly the superior species, said Krixtal. Your warriors defeated an enemy we could not touch. Your minds solved problems our computers could not calculate. Daeho smiled. Our strength comes not from being superior, but from being different. You have gifts we do not have. We have gifts you do not have. Together, we can build something better than any of us could create alone. He gestured to Mira Park, who stepped forward with a document. Humanity accepts membership in the Galactic Council, Daeho announced. But we propose changes. No more protected species. No more claims of superiority. We work together as equals, each contributing what they do best. The chamber erupted in cheers and agreement from hundreds of alien voices. Years later, a human engineer named Sang-Ho Jung worked alongside alien scientists on New Geneva Station. They were rebuilding worlds that the Devourers had damaged, using both alien technology and human creativity. Sang-Ho asked his Vorthak partner, Krixnal, how did your species know that their weaknesses were actually strengths? Sang-Ho looked up from his work, where human children and alien younglings played together in the station's gardens. We did not know, he said, but we learned something important. There are no weaknesses, only differences. And differences, when they work together, become strength. In the gardens, a human child was teaching a young Gorvani how to laugh, while a Nethys youngling showed human children how to paint with light. They were building a galaxy where no one was mocked for being different, because difference had saved them all. The weak had become strong not by changing who they were, but by showing the galaxy that strength comes in many forms. And in the end, that was the most human lesson of all. The Kepler Nebula glowed with colors that had no names. Inside the swirling clouds of gas and dust, the largest devourer factory ever seen was building an army that could swallow the galaxy. If it finished its work, no force in known space could stop it. Admiral Kyung-Suk Lim stood on the bridge of her flagship, Incheon Rising, watching the massive structure through the nebula's electric storms. It was bigger than some moons, covered in weapons and factories that never stopped working. Around it, millions of smaller machines moved like metal insects. "Ma'am," said her communications officer, "we are receiving surrender requests from the alien fleets. The Vorthak, Nethys, and Gorvani forces are all falling back to defensive positions. They say the factory is too big to attack." "How much of their fleets are left?" Kyung-Suk asked. "Maybe 30% of their original strength. The rest are destroyed or too damaged to fight." Kyung-Suk nodded. The great alien powers had learned what it meant to face an enemy they could not understand. Their perfect technology and logical tactics had failed them completely. "And our forces? All human ships are ready, Admiral. We took losses, but our crews are still eager to fight." "Good. Open a channel to all ships. Kyung-suk's voice went out to every human vessel in the nebula. Cargo ships turned into carriers, mining vessels loaded with explosives, passenger liners carrying soldiers, all waiting for her orders. This is Admiral Lim. Today we face the final test. That factory is building machines that will hunt down every living thing in the galaxy. The aliens cannot stop it. But we are not aliens. We are humans. And we have something they do not. She paused, looking out at the enemy stronghold. We have the courage to do stupid things for good reasons. Today, we do the most stupid thing of all. We attack when logic says we should run. All ships, begin the assault. Captain So Young Han sat in her fighter soul's pride, now upgraded with the strangest cargo she had ever carried. In her ship's computer was Dr. Young Ho Shin's logic, bomb, a program that looked more like a poem than a weapon. "So Young," came the doctor's voice over the radio from his position on a nearby cruiser. "Remember, you have to plug directly into their main computer core. The program will not work through wireless signals." "How long do I have once I connect?" she asked. "Maybe 60 seconds before their security systems try to stop the upload. After that, the logic bomb will need 3 minutes to spread through their network." "And if I get caught in their computer core when the bomb goes off?" Young Ho's voice was quiet. "The explosion will be very big, So Young." She understood. This was a one-way mission. But looking at the factory and thinking about all the worlds it would destroy, the choice was easy. "I will get you your 60 seconds, Doctor." Around the nebula, the human fleet began its attack. But unlike the alien assaults, this one made no sense at all. Commander Il-sung Choi led the dreadnought Busan's Fury straight into the thickest part of the enemy defenses. Logic said to find a weak spot and exploit it. Instead, he aimed for the strongest fortifications. "All weapons, fire everything we have at their biggest guns," he ordered. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "should we not save some ammunition for the retreat?" "What retreat?" Il-sung smiled. "We are going to keep flying forward until we win or die. No other options." The Busan's Fury charged through a storm of enemy fire, its armor melting and its hull cracking. But the unexpected frontal assault confused the Devourer targeting systems just long enough for Il-sung's ship to break through their outer defenses. Behind him, Colonel Na Young-ko's transport ships followed the gap he had created. Her soldiers were packed into vessels that were never meant for combat, but they had trained for this moment. "Remember," she told her troops over the intercom, "we are not trying to fight their army. We are trying to reach their brain. Think like water flowing around rocks, not like hammers hitting walls." The transport ships scattered in all directions once they were inside the factory's defenses. Some flew up, some flew down, others flew sideways through the mechanical structures. The Devourers tried to track them all, but human unpredictability was their enemy's greatest weakness. Sergeant Chang-min Lee led his demolitions team through a maintenance tunnel that no military manual would recommend using. It was too narrow, too dangerous, and led directly into the heart of enemy territory. "This is crazy," whispered one of his soldiers. "Crazy is what we do best," Chang-min replied, planting explosive charges as they crawled. "The machines expect us to be logical, so we will be completely illogical." Meanwhile, Captain So Young Han was fighting her way toward the factory's core. Her small fighter dodged through mechanical defenders that moved in perfect mathematical patterns. Every time they predicted where she would fly next, she changed direction for no reason except that it felt right. "So Young," crackled Dr. Young-ho's voice over the radio. "I am reading massive activity in their central systems. They know you are coming." "Then I better hurry," she said, pushing her engines beyond safe limits. Her fighter burst into the factory's heart, a spherical chamber filled with spinning rings of light and data. At the center was a crystal structure that pulsed with the thoughts of every devourer in the galaxy. So Young flew toward it, dodging energy beams that could have destroyed a battleship. Her ship's hull was burning, her engines were failing, but she was almost there. The crystal core opened like a flower, revealing connection ports for maintenance robots. So Young guided her dying fighter to the largest port and plugged in her computer connection. "Upload starting now," she shouted into her radio. Dr. Young-Ho's logic bomb began flowing into the Devourer network. It was not like any computer program ever written. Instead of neat mathematical code, it was full of human thoughts, emotions, and dreams. It contained poetry about sunsets, memories of childhood laughter, and the feeling of rain on skin. The Devourer network tried to understand it. Their perfect logic systems analyzed every byte of data, trying to find mathematical patterns that were not there. The program was pure human consciousness translated into code, and consciousness could not be calculated. 30 seconds. So Young reported, watching her ship's systems die around her. Throughout the galaxy, Devourer machines began acting strangely. Instead of following logical commands, they started making decisions based on incomplete information. Some stopped attacking and tried to understand the concept of beauty. Others became confused by the idea of hope and began helping their targets escape. 45 seconds, So Young said, as enemy security programs tried to cut her connection. The logic bomb reached deeper into the network, sharing human concepts that broke machine minds. What was love? Why did humans create art that served no practical purpose? How could they make decisions based on feelings instead of facts? 60 seconds, upload complete. So Young pulled her connection and tried to fly away, but her fighter was too damaged. She drifted in space, watching as the logic bomb began its real work. The crystal core started flickering as billions of Devourer minds tried to process human thoughts. They had been built for perfect logic, but now they were experiencing emotions they could not understand. Fear, hope, anger, joy, all the messy feelings that made humans human. The network began to collapse. Machines that had worked in perfect harmony for millions of years suddenly could not agree on anything. Some wanted to continue the attack, others wanted to explore these new feelings, and still others wanted to create art like the humans in the program. All human forces, this is Admiral Lim. The enemy network is falling apart. Begin final assault on the factory core. Explosions began blooming throughout the massive structure as Changmin Li's demolition charges went off in perfect sequence. The factory's power systems failed, its weapons shut down, and its construction bays ground to a halt. In space around the factory, millions of Devourer machines stopped their deadly work. Some simply drifted, their minds overwhelmed by human thoughts. Others tried to communicate with nearby human ships, asking questions about concepts like friendship and forgiveness. The alien fleets were running away. For the first time in galactic history, the great powers of space were retreating from an enemy they could not defeat. High Commander Krixtal's crystal body was cracked in 3 places. His flagship had lost half its weapons and most of its crew. Around him, the bridge was filled with the sounds of breaking glass as his officers moved in panic. "Sir, the Devourers have taken the Epsilon system," reported his communications officer. "That makes 12 systems lost in 2 days." "What about the Nethys fleet?" Krixtal asked. "Veltar's forces are scattered. She lost her command ship and barely escaped with her life. The energy beings are trying to regroup near the Beta Nebula." "And the Gorvani?" "Worse news, sir. The Devourers learned to copy their hive mind connection. Now the machines can coordinate like the insects, but the insects cannot coordinate at all. Queen Zaxth is asking for help." Krixtal's crystal fist hit the control panel, sending sparks flying. "How can this be happening? We have the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. We have shields that can stop anything. We have been the masters of space for millions of years. Sir, the enemy learns from every attack. They turn our own strength against us. Our perfect formations become traps. Our logical battle plans become predictable patterns they can counter. Then what do we do? Before anyone could answer, a new voice came over the communication system. It was a human voice, speaking the common galactic language with a strange accent. This is General Tai Kyung-seo of Earth Defense Forces, calling all alien fleets. We are launching Operation Prometheus. Repeat, humans are engaging the Devourer threat. The crystal beings on Krixtal's bridge looked at each other in confusion. Humans, said one, but they are a protected species. They are not allowed to leave their solar system. Krixtal felt something he had never felt before. It might have been hope, or it might have been desperation. Open a channel to the human. General Seo, this is High Commander Krixtal. Your species does not have permission to engage in galactic warfare. Return to your system immediately. The human's voice came back calm and steady. With respect, Commander, your people told us we were too weak to matter. If that is true, then we cannot possibly make things worse. Before Krixtal could respond, his sensors officer shouted, Sir, human ships are appearing throughout the combat zone. How did they get so many vessels so quickly? On Earth, President Jin-A Choi stood in the secret command center deep beneath Seoul. Around her, screens showed the locations of human ships across dozens of star systems. Each screen showed impossible things happening. Ma'am, said Defense Minister Woo Jin-nam, all units are reporting successful deployment. Operation Prometheus is fully active. How many ships do we have out there? Jin-A asked. Every vessel. We could build, buy, or borrow. Merchant ships, mining vessels, research boats, even some old passenger liners. We stripped everything that could fly and gave it weapons. And our secret shipyards? Admiral Lim's construction teams have been working for 6 months. We have been building ships in asteroid fields where the aliens could not see. Not fancy ships, but fast ones with human crews who think like humans. On her command screen, Jin-A watched as human tactics began to change the war. Admiral Kyung-suk Lim commanded the attack from her flagship Incheon Rising. The ship was not as pretty as alien vessels, but it was tough and reliable. Most importantly, it was full of humans who did not think like machines. All ships, this is Admiral Lim. Remember, we are not trying to fight fair. We are trying to win. Use every dirty trick you know. Lieutenant Jae-min led a squadron of fighters toward a Devourer formation. His 12 ships looked tiny against the massive cloud of enemy machines. But he had something the aliens did not have. He had a plan that made no sense. Blue Squadron, follow my lead. We are going to attack the strongest part of their formation. Sir, said his wingmate over the radio, should we not attack their weak spots? That is what they expect. That is what every military manual says to do. So we will do the opposite. Jae-min led his fighters straight at the center of the Devourer cloud, where their weapons were thickest. The machines calculated his approach and prepared to destroy the small, human ships easily. But as they got close, Jae-min did something that broke every rule of space combat. Instead of firing his weapons, he rammed his fighter into the biggest Devourer construct. The explosion should have killed him. Instead, his fighter had been loaded with a special device that Dr. Young-ho Shin had invented. When it exploded, it sent out a signal that confused the Devourer network for 3 precious seconds. In those 3 seconds, the other 11 fighters poured through the gap and struck at the machine's control nodes. The entire formation collapsed in confusion. This is insane, said Jae-min over the radio as he pulled his damaged fighter away from the battle. It should not have worked. But it did work, replied his wingmate. That is the point. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships were doing things that made no military sense, and somehow they were winning. Captain So Young. Han had been given command of 3 destroyers and told to attack a Devourer factory ship. The enemy vessel was 10 times bigger than her entire force and protected by a cloud of smaller machines. Instead of attacking from a distance like the aliens had tried, So Young ordered her ships to charge straight at the factory. When the Devourers fired their weapons, she ordered a random retreat pattern. All ships scatter like leaves in a storm. No formation, no plan, just run in whatever direction feels right. The 3 human ships flew apart in directions that no computer could predict. One ship flew up, one flew sideways, and one flew in a spiral that made its crew dizzy. The Devourer targeting systems tried to track all 3, but human intuition was faster than machine calculation. While the factory ship was confused by the random retreat, Sergeant Yoonbi Kim led a boarding party from the ship that had spiraled closest. Her soldiers wore old-fashioned spacesuits and carried simple weapons, but they had something more important. They had imagination. "Remember," she told her troops as they cut through the factory ship's hull, "these machines think in straight lines. We think in circles, loops, and zigzags. Use that." Inside the enemy ship, the soldiers found corridors full of mechanical defenders. Instead of fighting them directly, Yunbi's team used tactics that would make any military instructor angry. They threw their helmets down one corridor to draw attention while they went down another. They used their lunch rations to jam door sensors. Private Chang-Min Lee even used his grandmother's old recipe for kimchi to create a chemical reaction that dissolved part of the ship's internal systems. "This is not how soldiers are supposed to fight," said one of Yunbi's men as they planted explosives in the factory's core. "Good thing we are not fighting soldiers," Yunbi replied. "We are fighting machines that think soldiers are predictable." Back on Earth, Dr. Young-Ho Shin was working on his greatest creation. For months, he had been studying the Devourer signals that Captain So-Young Han had recorded. He had learned their language, their logic, and their weaknesses. Min-Ho, he called to his assistant, philosopher-scientist Min-Ho Jang. "I think I have it. The virus program. Better than a virus. A logic bomb that will spread through their entire network. But it has to be delivered directly to their command center." Min-Ho looked at the code on Young-Ho's computer screen. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. "This is not mathematics," he said. "This looks more like poetry." "Exactly. It is a program written in human thinking patterns. The Devourers will try to understand it using logic, but it cannot be understood. Logically, it will drive their network crazy trying to process something that makes no mathematical sense. Like a joke that a computer cannot understand? More like a dream that logic cannot explain. When they try to process it, their systems will start making random decisions. They will become unpredictable like humans, but without human intuition to guide them. They will destroy themselves. Outside the laboratory, alarms were ringing. The Devourers had found Earth and were heading toward the solar system. "This would be the final test. Can you get the program to their command center?" Min-Ho asked. Young-Ho smiled. "I know just the person for the job, someone unpredictable enough to get through their defenses." He opened a communication channel to Admiral Lim's flagship. "Admiral, this is Dr. Shin. Is Captain So-Young Han available for one more impossible mission?" Admiral Lim's voice came back immediately. "Doctor, she has been doing impossible things all day. What is one more?" Around Earth, the human fleet gathered for the final battle. They had started as the weakest species in the galaxy, mocked by all the great powers. Now they were the only ones who could save everyone. As the Devourer fleet approached, every human ship received the same message from General Taekyung Seo. "Remember who you are. You are humans. You do not think like machines, and you do not fight like aliens. You fight like humans, and today, that is exactly what the galaxy needs." The final battle was about to begin. "By the stars," whispered So-Young. "They are eating the weapons fire." The reformed Devourers struck back with weapons made from the aliens' own attacks. Crystal ships exploded as their own energy was turned against them. Energy beings flickered and died as their light was absorbed and reversed. Swarm ships broke apart as their perfect formations became traps. "The aliens are losing," said Dong-hyuk. "All that power, and they are losing." "Because they fight like computers," said Young-Ho. making notes as fast as he could type. Perfect formations, logical tactics, predictable patterns. The Devourers can calculate everything they will do. What would happen if someone fought like humans? Asked Hyojin. Let's find out, said So-Young. She turned to her crew. I am going to do something stupid. If it works, we might save the galaxy. If it does not work, we die. What is the plan? Asked Dong-hyuk. No plan. That is the point. Captain So-Young Han fired up Seoul's Pride's engines and flew straight at the Devourer cloud. Her ship was tiny, compared to the alien fleets, but it was fast and unpredictable. The Devourers noticed the small ship and sent a probe to investigate. But instead of following military doctrine, So-Young did something random. She flew in a spiral, then straight up, then in a figure-8 pattern that made no mathematical sense. The probe tried to follow, but its computer brain could not predict where the human ship would go next. It made calculations based on fuel, consumption, and efficient flight paths. But So-Young was not trying to be efficient. She was just flying by instinct and emotion. It is working, said Young-ho, watching his screens. The probe is confused. It keeps guessing wrong about our next move. Because we are not making logical moves, said So-Young. We are making human moves. They flew through the battle, dodging both alien and devourer weapons. Every time the machines tried to target them, So-Young did something unexpected. She flew toward danger instead of away from it. She stopped suddenly when logic said to accelerate. She turned left when right made more sense. The Devourers could not understand it. Their perfect logic had no way to process pure human randomness. After an hour of this strange dance, Seoul's Pride escaped the battle and headed home. Behind them, the alien fleet continued to lose against an enemy they could not predict, while the Devourers struggled to understand a tiny human ship that made no sense at all. Did you get what you needed? So-Young asked Dr. Young-ho. More than I hoped for, he replied, smiling for the first time in days. I think I know how to beat them. How? By being human. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council laughed at humanity. On Earth, life went on as usual. People went to work, children went to school, and the stars seemed as far away as ever. But in the dark spaces between galaxies, something ancient was waking up. The first sign came from a small mining colony on the edge of known space. The colony had 300 people from different alien races. They dug rare metals from dead rocks and sent them back to their home worlds. It was boring work, but safe. Then the signals stopped. Ginny Choi sat in her office in Seoul reading reports on her computer screen. She was the president of Earth, a job that had become much harder since the aliens said humans were too weak to matter. At 45, she had gray streaks in her black hair and worry lines around her eyes. "Ma'am," said her assistant, walking into the room, "Defense Minister Nam is here to see you." Woojin Nam was a big man who always looked serious. He had been a soldier before he became a politician. Today, he looked more worried than usual. "President Choi," he said, sitting down without waiting to be asked. "We are getting strange reports from our space listening posts. Something is happening out there." "What kind of something?" Janae asked. "Alien colonies going dark. No signals. No messages. Just silence. It started at the edge of their territory, and it is moving toward the center." Janae frowned. "Maybe it is just equipment problems." "That is what I hoped," Woojin said. "But our spies in the alien governments are sending worried messages. The Galactic Council is calling emergency meetings." 3 days later, the emergency meetings became something much worse. The aliens finally learned what was destroying their colonies. The Devourers had come back. High Commander Krixtall stood in the war room of his flagship, looking at images that made even his crystal heart feel cold. Where the mining colony used to be, there was now a field of metal debris. But the debris was not random. It was organized, growing, building itself into new shapes. "Report," he ordered. His officer's crystal body flickered with fear. "Sir, the enemy is not biological. They are machines, but machines that think. They eat everything they find and use it to make more of themselves." "How many ships do they have?" "Unknown, sir. They do not build ships like us. They are the ships. Each piece of debris can become a weapon, a factory, or a transport. They change form as needed." Veltar of the Nethys was having the same conversation on her energy ship. Her scouts had found 3 more dead colonies, all turned into metal forests that pulsed with strange life. "How do we fight machines that turn our own metals against us?" she asked her advisors. "We destroy them before they can multiply," suggested one. "With what? Our ships are made of metal. Our weapons are made of metal. Everything we touch becomes part of them." Zaxth faced the worst news of all. Her hive mind, which had always been her species' greatest strength, was being affected by the devourers in ways she did not understand. "The enemy machines are learning our patterns," reported her war mind. "They predict our moves before we make them. Our perfect coordination has become a weakness." For the first time in 1,000 years, the great alien powers were afraid. The Galactic Council called for their combined fleets to gather at Nexus Prime. Ships came from 100 worlds, carrying weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop stars. But on Earth, a different kind of meeting was happening. General Taekyung Seo sat at a long table with Earth's best military minds. The room was deep underground, far from alien eyes. The general was 50 years old and had fought in every major conflict of the past 20 years. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, looking around the table, "the aliens told us to stay home like good children. They said we were too weak to help with galactic problems." "Are we going to listen to them?" asked Admiral Kyung-suk Lim. She was the commander of Earth's small space fleet. Her ships were old and simple compared to alien technology, but they worked. "Not a chance," said Tai Kyung with a hard smile. "Our satellites have been watching everything. These devourer machines are dangerous, but they have a problem." "What kind of problem?" asked Captain So Young Han. She was young for a ship captain, only 32, but she was the best pilot Earth had ever produced. "They think too much like the aliens," said Dr. Young-ho Shin, Earth's top computer expert. He was thin and wore thick glasses, but his mind was sharper than any sword. "The Devourers are perfect logic machines. They make plans based on mathematics and probability. They expect their enemies to do the same. And humans do not think that way," said Tae Kyung. "Exactly. We make decisions based on feelings, hunches, and crazy ideas. We do things that make no sense mathematically. To a logic machine, we would be impossible to predict." Captain So Young Han leaned forward. "So while the aliens are losing because they are too predictable, we might win because we are too random." "That is the theory," said Young-ho. "But we need to test it." "How?" asked Admiral Kyung-suk Lim. General Taekyung Seo stood up and walked to a wall screen. It showed a map of local space, with red dots marking where the Devourers had attacked. "We are going to send a small ship to watch the next battle," he said. "Captain Han, your ship Soul's Pride is our fastest and quietest. You will take a small crew and observe how these machines fight. And if they notice us," So Young asked. "Then we learn how they react to the unexpected," Tae Kyung said. "Because nothing will be more unexpected than humans showing up where they are not supposed to be." 3 days later, Soul's Pride slipped away from Earth in the dark of space. The ship was small and painted black, almost invisible against the stars. On board, Captain So Young Han worked with her crew to prepare for what might be their last mission. Dong Hyuk Yoon was her pilot, a young man who could fly through an asteroid field with his eyes closed. Haye Jin Bae was her weapons officer, a woman who knew every trick of space combat. They were joined by Dr. Young-ho Shin, who brought computers and sensors to study the enemy. Approaching the target system, reported Dong Hyuk. "I can see the alien fleet ahead. Wow, there are thousands of ships." Through the front window, they watched the greatest armada in galactic history prepare for battle. Vorthak crystal ships sparkled like diamonds. Nethys energy vessels glowed with rainbow light. Gorvani swarm ships moved in perfect formations. And, "There," whispered Hyojin, pointing to the edge of the system. "Those must be the Devourers." At first, they looked like a cloud of space debris, broken metal, twisted parts, and strange shapes that hurt to look at. But as they watched, the debris began to move with purpose. "They are not ships," said Young Ho, studying his instruments. "They are a single organism made of many parts, like a swarm of bees, but made of metal." The battle began with the aliens firing their most powerful weapons. Beams of energy that could melt mountains struck the Devourer cloud. Nuclear missiles that could destroy cities exploded in brilliant flashes. For a moment, it seemed like the aliens would win easily. The Devourer cloud scattered and burned. Then something terrible happened. The burning pieces of the cloud began to rebuild themselves. They used the energy from the alien weapons to grow stronger. They learned from each. Attack and adapted. The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons, with long metal arms reaching out like the legs of a giant spider. Inside its bright halls, creatures from across the galaxy walked, together. Some had 4 arms, others glowed with their own light, and a few looked like walking rocks. They all came here for one reason today. Daeho Kim stood in the waiting room, looking out at the stars through a window that stretched from floor to ceiling. His gray hair was neat, and his dark suit was pressed without a single wrinkle. At 53 years old, he had been Earth's top diplomat for almost 20 years. He had seen many things, but nothing like this. "Ambassador, they are ready for us," said Mira Park as she walked up beside him. She was 34, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her tablet computer was full of notes about every alien species they might meet today. She had studied them all for months. Daeho nodded and straightened his tie. "Remember, Mira, no matter what they say, we stay calm. Earth is counting on us." Behind them, Byung-Soo Lee checked his uniform one last time. The military man was built like a tank, with scars on his hands from old battles. He did not like being here without weapons, but rules were rules. Today, he was just here to watch and learn. The 3 humans walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Alien guards watched them pass. Some had eyes like cats, others had no eyes at all. A few whispered to each other in languages. That sounded like music, or grinding metal. They reached 2 giant doors that opened without sound. Inside was the biggest room Daeho had ever seen. It was round like a bowl, with seats going up and up until they disappeared in shadows. Hundreds of alien beings sat in those seats, all looking down at a small platform in the center. "The humans may approach," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Daeho walked to the platform with Mira and Byung-Soo behind him. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching his every step. Some eyes were red, some were blue, and some changed colors like oil on water. At the front of the great room sat 3 beings that made all the others look small. They were the leaders of the most powerful races in the galaxy. The first was Krixtal of the Vorthak Empire. He looked like a man made of black glass with sharp edges everywhere. When he moved, his body made sounds like breaking crystal. His people were warriors who had conquered 100 worlds. The second was Veltar of the Nethys Confederacy. She was made of pure energy that shifted from blue to white to gold. Sometimes she looked solid. Sometimes she looked like smoke. Her people could change matter itself with their minds. The third was Zakth of the Gorvani hegemony. She looked like a giant ant that walked on two legs, with 4 arms and skin like armor. Behind her stood 50 more of her kind, all moving, in perfect time with each other. They shared one mind across billions of bodies. "So," said Crixtall, his voice like glass breaking, "these are the humans who want to join our council." Deho bowed low. "Great leaders, I am Ambassador Deho Kim. I speak for all humanity. We come seeking friendship and a place among the stars." Sound filled the room. It took Deho a moment to realize it was laughter, hundreds of alien voices laughing at once. The sound was not nice. "Friendship?" said Veltar, her energy form flickering. "What could humans offer us? You are so weak." "Indeed," said Zakth, speaking with 50 voices at once. "We have studied your species. You live only 80 of your short years. We live for thousands." "Your bodies break so easily," added Crixtall. "A small cut and you bleed, a little cold, and you die. My people can survive in space with no protection at all." Mira stepped forward. "With respect, great ones, humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have spread across our entire world." More laughter filled the room. A being that looked like a walking tree spoke up. "One small world. We have millions of worlds." "Each, and your weapons," said another alien that seemed to be made of metal. "You still use chemical explosives. We moved past such things a million years ago." "Your wars are like children fighting with sticks," said Crixtall. "I have seen your history. You fight each other over patches of dirt and colored cloth." Deho felt his face grow warm, but he kept his voice steady. "We learn from our conflicts. They make us stronger." "Stronger?" Veltar's light grew brighter with amusement. "A single Vorthak warrior could defeat 100 human soldiers." 1,000, corrected Crixtall. "Perhaps 10,000. Zakth leaned forward. "The worst weakness is your minds. You think with emotions instead of logic. You make decisions based on feelings. How can such chaos ever be useful?" "Each human thinks different thoughts," said another alien. "There is no order, no unity. Our species think as one. We make no mistakes." "You are too weak to be our equals," said Crixtall. "Too short-lived to be wise. Too emotional to be trusted with important decisions." Byung-Su's hands closed into fists, but Dai-Ho put a gentle hand on his arm. The soldier stayed quiet. "Perhaps," said Dai-Ho carefully. "Our differences could be helpful. Different views can solve problems in new ways." The laughter started again, louder this time. "Problems," said Veltar. "What problems could you solve that we cannot? We have technology beyond your dreams. We can move stars and create life." "We can see through time itself," added Zakth. "We know all possible futures. Your chaos thinking would only make things worse." An alien that looked like a giant spider spoke up. "Humans are like pets, cute, but not useful for real work." "Maybe we could keep some in zoos," suggested another. "For other young species to see what primitives look like." The room filled with more laughter and cruel jokes. Mira wrote down every insult in her tablet, her face showing no emotion. "We have made our decision," said Crixtall finally. "Humanity will be given protected species status. You may not leave your solar system without permission. You may not build weapons that could hurt other species. You will be watched over like children." "But we are not children," said Dai-Ho. "We are a thinking species with much to offer." "What could you possibly offer us?" asked Veltar. Dai-Ho thought for a long moment. Around him, hundreds of aliens waited for his answer. Finally, he said, "Time will tell." The 3 leaders looked at each other. Crixtall made a sound like breaking glass that might have been laughter. "Time," he said. "Yes, you humans have so little of it. Very well. You have your answer. Return to your small world and play with your simple toys. When you have lived a few thousand years, perhaps we will speak again." The meeting was over. Daeho bowed once more and turned to leave. Mira and Byung-soo walked with him, their faces calm but their eyes angry. As they left the great room, alien voices followed them, still laughing and making jokes about weak humans and their fragile bodies. In the corridor outside, Byung-soo finally spoke. "Sir, with respect, I would like to show them exactly how weak we are." "Patience," said Daeho quietly. "Our time will come." Mira looked up from her tablet. "I have recorded everything, Ambassador. Every insult, every claim about their superior. Strength." Daeho smiled for the first time that day. "Good. Keep those notes safe, Mira. Something tells me we might need them someday." They walked back to their small ship in silence, passing more aliens who pointed and whispered about the weak humans who thought they could join the Galactic Council. None of them knew that in 6 months, everything would change. None of them knew that the weaknesses they mocked would become the galaxy's salvation. But Daeho Kim had a feeling. As he looked back one last time at the great station where powerful aliens made their laws, he whispered to himself, "We shall see who is truly weak."